Today I want to talk about some really common mistakes people make that can seriously impact their health. This information becomes especially important as you get older, especially after 50. But even if you're younger, pay attention. You definitely won't hear this from your average doctor, because most doctors aren't nutrition experts. They simply don't receive that kind of training. Whatever they recommend, consider doing the opposite. They're often more focused on giving you a label for a condition and then matching that with a medication. I'm much more interested in getting to the root of the problem. So first things first, you want to make absolutely sure that the health information you're getting comes from someone with a lot of experience and a proven track record of success with the specific problem you're trying to solve. Second, be very cautious about accepting a diagnosis that just doesn't feel right. And third, make sure that any solution or treatment you receive doesn't create more problems than your current symptoms. In other words, watch out for side effects. That brings me to my next point, stress. If you're exposed to too much stress, it can get stuck in your mind, keeping you up at night, worrying constantly, and living in a perpetual state of fear. Unfortunately, these days, it's almost impossible to avoid stress completely because it's everywhere. Before I dive into nutrition, I want to touch on the importance of your environment. I didn't fully grasp how crucial your surroundings were until I had the incredible opportunity to move out of the city and onto a farm. Let me tell you, having that space is incredibly therapeutic. Getting out into nature regularly is so important. Another key factor is regular, consistent exercise. What exercise does is help flush out the cortisol and adrenaline that builds up just from living in this world. If you exercise in intervals, rather than sustaining a high pulse rate, it's actually healthier for you. Now, let's talk about the most important nutrients you need on a regular basis. The most crucial one is vitamin D. Think about your genetics. You have roughly 20,000 to 25,000 different genes. Did you know that vitamin D influences 10% of those genes to create a therapeutic effect? To truly experience the benefits of vitamin D, you need to take 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, or even more international units of vitamin D3. There's a medical doctor specializing in autoimmune diseases who gets amazing results using high doses of vitamin D3. He has over 900 videos with testimonials showing the incredible before and after effects. Some doctors are even using high doses of vitamin D3 to remodel parts of the eye and repair serious conditions like glaucoma. Others are using it to shrink fibroids. So, vitamin D is incredibly important for your health. And of course, getting more sunshine is beneficial too, but most of us just don't spend enough time outdoors. The second most important nutrient is magnesium. It's rare for anyone to get enough magnesium. Magnesium is involved in thousands of bodily processes. Almost every type of heart disease involves a magnesium deficiency, but magnesium's importance goes way beyond heart health. If you don't have enough magnesium, your body can't produce energy efficiently. And finally, number 3 is zinc. Zinc is a trace mineral that's often overlooked, but it's incredibly important and many people are deficient. These 3 nutrients, vitamin D, magnesium, and zinc, all work together. In other words, you could be taking a lot of vitamin D3 but still be deficient in magnesium and zinc, and the vitamin D won't be as effective. You need all 3. On the flip side, there are 2 nutrients you need to be careful about consuming too much of because they can become toxic. Number 1 is calcium. As we age, calcium tends to clog things up. Guess what regulates calcium? Magnesium. So, if you don't get enough magnesium regularly, you increase your risk of heart disease because you lack the controlling factor for calcium, and it can end up in your soft tissues. The other nutrient that's even more dangerous than excess calcium is iron. We have an extremely hard time getting rid of excess iron. At most, we only eliminate half to 1 milligram of iron per day. Yet the recommended daily allowance for iron is 8 milligrams, and for women of childbearing age, it's 18 milligrams. We're taking in way too much iron. If you have too much iron, it can damage your organs. You want to start reading labels and avoiding certain things to ensure you don't overload on iron, even if you have a genetic condition affecting iron metabolism. Iron is very toxic, and I never recommend taking it as a supplement. Another mistake to avoid is fearing salt. There's a big difference between sea salt and table salt. I always recommend sea salt because it contains 84 minerals. If someone is salt sensitive, they're likely just deficient in potassium, because potassium and sodium work together, and we need a significant amount of sodium, which we get from sea salt. When you're deficient in salt, your cortisol levels increase, which can affect your sleep and make you feel stressed. Salt is a crucial electrolyte. The recommended daily allowance for potassium is 4,700 milligrams, which is also vital for your nerves and muscles to generate energy. I don't think anyone reaches that amount every day. Someone recently asked me what they should be doing as they go through menopause, and I told them to make sure they're eating enough cholesterol-rich foods. They were surprised, saying their doctor was trying to lower their cholesterol. Well, here's the thing. As we age, our hormone levels start to decline. Testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, and so on. All of those hormones are made from cholesterol. When you reduce your cholesterol intake or take medications that lower it, you're also reducing those hormones that are already low. So, getting enough of the raw material, cholesterol, in your diet is very important, especially as you age. We need cholesterol for our brains, for bile salts to help digest fats, and most importantly, to produce hormones. Where do we get cholesterol? Butter, eggs, dairy, and shellfish. And here's a side note. Consider that diabetes is characterized by too much sugar in your blood. Wouldn't it make sense to reduce sugar and carbohydrates? Instead, the focus is often on making sure you have glucose tablets on hand in case your blood sugar gets too low from medication. Why not just take less medication and reduce your carb intake? This whole approach seems illogical. In your diet, you have proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Which one is the most important to focus on for optimal health? Proteins are the most important. Why? Because most of your body is made of protein, not just muscles and connective tissue, but also your immune system, antibodies, and white blood cells. A person, an insect, an animal, they will all continue to eat until their protein requirements are met. Just look at junk food. There's hardly any protein in it. Cereals, crackers, cookies, check the protein content. It's practically non-existent. What food offers the most healing benefits right away? Grass-fed beef and grass-fed lamb. These are the most nutrient-dense foods for healing your gut, providing trace minerals and B vitamins and offering the highest quality protein. Think about it. As we age, especially over 50, we start losing muscle mass. You need to maintain a higher protein intake with each meal. You can also get a super concentrated amount of these nutrients from organ meats. I wish I liked liver, but I don't, so I'm not going to eat it. However, there's another type of liver that I love. In fact, I sometimes crave it, and it's cod liver. The reason I bring this up is that cod liver is one of the best sources of nutrients. I eat it probably twice a week. Now, here's a very important point, the frequency of eating. Let's say you consume 2,500 calories per day. If you eat those calories in just 2 meals versus 6 meals, all those extra meals create more problems for you. Why? Because every time you eat, you stimulate insulin production. Producing too much insulin is probably the single biggest problem behind so many chronic illnesses today, not just diabetes, but also fatty liver and high blood pressure. We talked about reducing carbohydrates, and now we're talking about reducing snacking and grazing, especially at night. It's just not good for you. If you could take your snacks, whether it's nuts or whatever, and just add them to your meals and stick to 2 meals a day, that would be fantastic. You could then incorporate intermittent fasting and experience significant improvements because it will help lower your insulin levels. Next, let's talk about autoimmune diseases, where your immune system attacks itself. This is a major health problem, and I believe it's caused by a combination of factors. First, the person usually has low vitamin D levels, But I don't think that's the only cause. It also has to do with microbes, viruses, and other pathogens that are constantly trying to invade our bodies and cause problems. One of their strategies is to downgrade your vitamin D receptors. This means that normal amounts of vitamin D don't have much effect because the microbes are interfering. But there's something else that often happens just before this type of infection takes hold. In my experience, I noticed that these individuals almost always experienced a stressful event right before developing their autoimmune disease. The loss of a loved one, a job loss, or some other significant loss. What happens when someone goes through a severe shock? Their immune system becomes suppressed due to high cortisol levels. If you're already low in vitamin D3, you can experience a shift in your immune system where it starts inappropriately attacking your own tissues, leading to an autoimmune disease. Prednisone, which is a synthetic form of cortisol, will also suppress the immune system. This is why it's used for autoimmune diseases and skin rashes. The absolute best thing you can do for stress is exercise and take steps to change your environment. Avoid exposing yourself to so much chaos. And finally, one of the most important things you need to understand about your health is the gut microbiome. People often think of it as something extra, not really a part of us, but it absolutely is. It's actually far more extensive than our own cells. The impact those microbes have on your health is enormous. Why would we ever want to take an antibiotic and kill them off? It's beyond me. You have to realize that when you take an antibiotic, you will never have the same microbes again. Many of those microbes never recover. It's a myth that they'll just bounce back to normal. The importance of supporting your gut microbes as an organ is vital for so many reasons: immune protection, neurotransmitter production, mood regulation, cognitive function, vitamin production, digestion, cancer prevention, sleep quality. The list goes on and on. That's why it's so important to regularly consume fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and yogurt, and taking a high-quality probiotic is a very smart move. I've covered a lot of ground in this video, and I believe it's all incredibly important, especially if you're over 50. But I would encourage you to apply this information even before you reach 50. Start building your health now, because health has to be actively created. It doesn't just happen automatically. I've given you the key ingredients for creating health. And I think the next most important video for you to watch is about the best foods to eat to create health.